Yeah. And I almost think that it comes back to this whole concept of having things, if you're eating foods that are really bad for you chronically, obviously that's going to have a massive output to your metabolic health. It's going to have a massive output to your microbiome, all these things. Whereas like if your diet is really healthy for, 90% of the time, and you go to, Dairy Queen to get a Blizzard like once a month, like that shouldn't wreck your metabolic health, or it shouldn't wreck your microbiome or anything along those lines. So yeah, I really like that concept of being able to say like, look, just because it's not good for you at this time, that's probably because you've been chronically indulging in these, or not indulging or consuming over a long period of time, and your body's like basically in fight or flight, and so by removing it, you can reintroduce it in little doses here and there. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it even goes beyond this, where I have individuals where, it's not even pizza and ice cream that they're having to eliminate. It's things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, onions, gluten, dairy, soy, eggs, nuts. So like they have this huge long list of everything that they don't eat. And that really leads me to, I'm a why person. I want to understand why. Your iron's low, why? Your thyroid's low, why? You can't eat all these foods. Why is that? What's actually going on?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because in fact, at my food sensitivity test, broccoli and Brussels sprouts is one of them. And my nurse practitioner was like, well, how often do you eat broccoli and Brussels sprouts? I was like, broccoli is my favorite vegetable. I eat a lot. She's like, well, your stuff is out of whack and it's hard to digest. And so you're having a harder time. And so your body's like, we don't like this right now. I mean, the number one food that I was sensitive to at the time of the test was vanilla.
Interesting.
Like, who would have thought? But like literally every day I had an all natural vanilla sweetener that I was putting in my coffee every single day. And so it's just really interesting. And pineapple, I couldn't have pineapple for a while. I can now. So maybe we could start a little bit with what is the first step? Because I did a food sensitivity test, but is that necessary? Like when your patients come to you, what is the first step when it's like what should be working or what traditionally works isn't working? Now what do we need to do?
I'm a really big advocate for testing, right? I like to do a full comprehensive workup. Everybody gets their thyroid done, everybody gets their hormones done, everybody gets their blood sugar and fasting insulin, nutrient deficiencies, because that way we really understand what we need to target, right? If you're fatigued and you're low in iron, let's support that. If your thyroid's fine, we don't need to support that. But without those measurements, we don't know what we're doing. And for individuals who can't get access to testing, there's lots of third-party companies that you can go to in the US to have your blood work done, and even cash pay options. I really encourage everybody to have their numbers and monitor it year after year. Even if you're
Real
feeling
quick
great,
on that,
right?
how frequently should people be getting these tests done?
At least once a year, right?
Okay.
If everything's great, you feel amazing, then at least we have a baseline where we can track over time, and then we can pick up trends, right? So for women in their mid 30s, let's test your hormones. If you're feeling good now, perfect. But I want to know what happens in your mid 40s. What
Yeah,
is
give you a
that? Yeah, to have the benchmark. And same for things like vitamin D, right? Sometimes there's sun, sometimes there's not.
Right.
So you need to have that tested so you know what dose you require if needed.
That totally makes sense. So I guess part of this, so that's the first step. It's the discovery process of discovering like where are you deficient. So I guess the next question that I have is how does that relate to metabolism? And maybe can we spend a little bit of time kind of talking about metabolism, because I think it's a term that gets thrown around a lot. People are like, oh, my metabolism is slow, or it's super fast, or I supercharged it, or it's burning. Like all these phrases.
I'm just going to be stuck at 40 to 50 pounds overweight in my
Yeah.
40s, 50s, and 60s because I've just hit that point where my metabolism is shot and there's no hope, right?
Exactly.
And it's just like, okay, well, that is what it is.
Yeah. So maybe can we talk a little bit about like what metabolism is exactly, and then how these tests can actually like help us get a better insight on how, what our metabolism actually is.
Actually is. Yeah, so the definition of metabolism is our body's ability to generate energy, or ATP. But we usually think of metabolism in layman's terms of how can I maintain my weight? But it also relates to various other areas of our body. Our digestive system and the gut microbiome can actually influence your metabolism. We know that there's a strong association between certain gut types and leanness, and certain gut types and obesity. Increased risk of type 2 diabetes, we're now seeing connections with the gut microbiome. Of course, there's the nutrition and lifestyle aspect. Sleep impacts your metabolism, your hormones, right? Ask anyone who's going through perimenopause and menopause how their hormones influence their metabolism. Other things in terms of your blood sugar and your insulin levels, cortisol levels impacts your metabolism, your thyroid. So it's usually multifactorial for individuals. Low vitamin D, low iron makes it harder for you to manage your blood sugar. You don't have as much energy. That can impact your metabolism and weight. So my favorite part in working with patients is we run all this comprehensive testing, then I get to connect the dots for them and show them, okay, you do have all the symptoms and you really believe it's a thyroid condition, but here are the labs clearly showing you that your thyroid's okay. But if we look at over here, these are the areas that are really giving you the problem, and here's our plan to fix it.
I love that. Can you explain to our listeners what is ATP? Because it is something that I feel like we reference a lot here, and we've maybe had one other person kind of describe, but I know not everybody listening has listened to every episode. And so can you just take a brief moment, because you mentioned that in your description of what metabolism is. So I think kind of painting that picture will help create a larger picture of what metabolism's function is in the body.
So essentially, ATP is the source of energy that our cells can use to do various functions. It is our mitochondria that's going to be generating that ATP. But that process is intricately connected with nutrient levels and blood sugar levels and even lean muscle mass, right? The more lean muscle mass you have, we know that that's really important for the mitochondria that produce that ATP. So we want to make sure that our mitochondria are healthy and that we also are maintaining mitochondria as we age, because that's a key function with our metabolism as well.
Awesome. So the mitochondria, I kind of geek out a little bit about the mitochondria. Obviously, I think that I took the 10th grade biology lesson that it's the powerhouse of the cell.
It to heart.
A little bit too seriously. But it is such fascinating things like metabolic health. And really, when it comes down to it, it's metabolic health really is mitochondrial health. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but the mechanisms by which you increase the production of your mitochondria, and how that the fact that mitochondria also dies off with free radicals and things along those lines. Maybe can we talk a little bit about how can someone actually maintain their mitochondrial health?
I'm a big fan of resistance training for mitochondrial health, not necessarily for weight loss. I think we really need to focus on the hormones as well as your gut health and your nutrition and sleep and mindset. That's more related to weight than exercise is for me, but exercise is an amazing tool to help improve your longevity as well as support the mitochondria. There's also key nutrients that the mitochondria needs in order to function. So if we're not even having those basic nutrient intake in the diet, you're not getting your antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, your mitochondria is not going to work as well either. Even going back to the basics, right? Sleep, drink clean water, get outside, have some fresh air, move your body, and eat whole foods. I think that's really the foundation missing part for a lot of people. I think we overcomplicate things and we jump on trends, where if we just kind of take a step back and say nothing fancy, healthy whole foods, outside and fresh air, move your body.